Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renasant Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting from inside Renasant Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And if you're looking for a bank that is in the top 10 of banks nationwide, I'm not talking about assets or something like that, some self-serving measure. I'm talking about customer surveys that Forbes magazine has done. How you like that? Well, that's where Renasant places top 10 of banks nationwide. And if you're looking for a bank like that, that's top 10 in customer service, well, this is the one for you. So I suggest to go to RenasantBank.com and find their local office and give them a call. And I think you'll be glad you did. Renasant Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Joe Mraz. Joe is a financial advisor with Raymond James. Joe, welcome.
Thanks for having me, John. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to have you here. Thanks for coming in. Let's talk a little bit about you and how you're serving folks at Raymond James.
Yeah, so like John said, I'm a financial advisor. I've been there for 3 years. My primary role is working with business owners in the succession planning process. So when they're going through that liquidity event of exiting their business, putting together a plan for them so that they don't have to worry about that.
Terrific. Let's talk about your journey. You grew up in Woodstock, right?
I did. Born and raised in Woodstock, Georgia. So I'm a local Atlantean of sorts.
You're in the minority in Atlanta, right? I mean, there's not many people around here that grew up here. But talk about how, Woodstock has changed since you grew up.
Oh yeah. So I was born there in the late 90s when it was still kind of small town USA. And,
right.
And since then, that whole downtown area has been completely developed. All kinds of shopping centers popping up, corporate businesses are coming in. So it's really been cool to see firsthand the growth there.
And is that where you're based, or or you're here in Alpharetta?
I'm here in Alpharetta, right
okay.
off Haynesbridge and 400.
Right. We'll get more to that in a second, but talk about your journey through college. You've got a special talent that you developed along the way.
Yeah, I caught the addiction of playing golf early in high school, and was fortunate enough to be able to play college golf at Spring Hill College, which was, about as cool of an experience as you can get as a college athlete. You play golf and get a scholarship to do it. It's pretty good.
That's pretty awesome. You have, so did you play on the high school team?
I did. I played at Blessed Trinity High School.
Okay, cool. More on that in a second. And you earned a scholarship at Spring Hill.
I did. Yep.
That's big time academics at Spring Hill. That's a great school.
Yeah, it was fantastic. For the listeners that aren't familiar, it's a really small liberal arts college down in Mobile, Alabama. That's about the size of Alpharetta High School. So I think when I was there was 1,400 undergrad. So it had a really cool small field, but the education I got there was fantastic.
One thing I'm interested in, Joe, is as a former college athlete, a college athlete in the so-called non-revenue sport, right? That's what the way they like to put that. If it's not football, it's a non-revenue sport, right? But talk about what's your perspective on NIL, the name, image, and likeness for college athletes, and how that might impact folks that are in non-revenue sports like you were?
Well, it's definitely different because, where football recruiting's been changed a lot, and some of the other bigger sports, not so much in golf. So we, as a sport, maintained a lot of the integrity that it originally had, where, it isn't as money driven as some other sports might be. So it hasn't really affected golf as much in those non-revenue sports.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you think it's a good idea, or what's your view on it? Not a good idea.
I'm kind of indifferent on it. I can see both sides of the tape where, students that are needing the money can have the opportunity to make it. But it's also tough for, the non-revenue guys that aren't getting paid. that are doing just as much work. So there's two sides to that coin, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. There's gray area in everything, right?
Yeah.
So you got out of Spring Hill and you decided did you go directly into the investment advisory business, or how did that happen?
I did. That was my first, choice and career path was to get right into this. And so I was with another firm briefly before Raymond James, but same industry, and I've loved it.
And why why the financial services industry? I mean, what brought you into this that really lights your fire?
Yeah. So I originally went to college with the intention of potentially going to law school. And the more I learned about that, the less I realized that was for me. But I knew I wanted to do something that had an impact and that mattered. And I feel that what I do on a day-to-day basis and helping people clear up their financial picture, really does make an impact. And so for me, it's easy to get out of bed in the morning and, continue to chase that passion.
Folks, we're chatting with Joe Mraz. Joe is a financial advisor with Raymond James. So, I think you've got to love, though, the investment process, right? I mean, it's not just about working with people. You got to love that process too. So it's really both those things, right? I mean, and you've got to balance your love for people with this technical ability to go through that investment process. Those are two different things, right?
Definitely. That's where the balance is difficult, because I can kind of nerd out on, the investments and looking at charts and, understanding the macro scene, and then looking at a company's earnings per share and, all these different factors that go into it. But at the same time, being personable enough to relay that to people who have jobs other than, watching the financial markets. So,
right. And you've got to be able to explain, right? I mean, explain difficult concepts to people that aren't in it every day, right? That talk about your how you've developed that talent.
Yeah, I think the more you learn about something and the more research I've done, the easier it is to simplify it. And so what I try to do when I'm talking to my clients on our monthly calls and during challenging situations, just to make it as simple and as understandable as they can be, because, any confusion can cause anxiety. And if I can erase that anxiety by just keeping the message pretty direct and easy to understand, then I've done my job.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about monthly calls. Is that your cadence for?
It is.
Talking. Is that a formal call, or is this just a check-in, or talk about how that works for you? Yeah.
So there is a little bit of structure, but I also try to keep it true to myself and keep it informal, and talk to them about just normal conversational things as well, like how they're doing, how their family's doing, if they're going on any trips and stuff like that. But I will always talk about the market scene and the macro, and then try to relate it back down to their portfolio, and if we need to make changes and if we don't. But I like to keep that constant monthly communication piece, because I kind of have a saying that I don't want my clients calling me, I want to be the one calling them.
Now, how do you work with those folks that say, "Hey, Joe, I really don't want to talk about this every month"? I mean, come on.
They're out there, and we'll put them on a different schedule. And I know a lot of my clients are really busy, and they don't have that time every month. So we'll put it on a quarterly basis, or some people just want to do semi-annual reviews in person and spend more time that way. But just catering to what they need.
It's really important, though, even though it may not be pleasant, it's not your skill set as a client of you as the investment advisor. It's really important to have those check-in calls, though, right? Because life changes and your objectives can change.
Oh yeah. It's just as important for me to be able to do my job as it is for them to understand what's going on. Because if there's a major life change and I don't know about, then that, can severely impact their plan. And I could be sitting there thinking, they're on perfect track and nothing's changed, when perhaps everything's changed. So, staying up to date with where they're at is super important.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you talked about communicating with clients in challenging times. How do you do that?
It's difficult, but just trying to understand, where they're coming from, because like I talked about earlier, not everybody spends the time every day that I do watching the markets and reading the research every morning. And, understanding when they're concerned and being a human about it, and not, just dismissing it as, something trivial, because it isn't. When it's a heavy burden sometimes to manage people's, whole life savings in many cases. And it's something I don't take lightly. So I want to understand what their concerns are and act accordingly if need be.
Mm-hmm. Folks, we're chatting with Joe Mraz. Joe is financial advisor at Raymond James. So, Joe, you are a young professional. To me, everybody's a young professional, but you call yourself a young professional. I want you to give some advice. I mean, you're how many years out of college now?
3.
Okay, so give some advice to young professionals that are starting their career, and talk about what they should be thinking about, not just in college, but as they get out and assess, hey, am I on the right track?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just be really open-minded about the opportunities that come to you, because, myself and so many of my friends, we just wanted to get that job as soon as we got out of college. And in many cases, it's not the right fit. So, when you're out there searching for the job or searching for your career, be open-minded to the opportunities that come to you, and interview the companies that are interviewing you in some sense, because, you get the interview and you're all nervous, but at the same time, those companies need to be applying for a job with you as well, because you're ultimately, representing them. So making sure that you're working with companies that are an extension of your values and what you're looking for is important.
Mm. You have been very active in the North Fulton Chamber. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just goes back to being a local boy. I want our communities here to be the best they can be. And I love supporting small businesses. It's a part of my business in general, but I come from local small business owners on my mom's and dad's side. So just giving back when I can and doing what I can to support local communities.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. Now, you've got another little piece of community involvement that you do, and it involves golf. So talk about that.
Yes, I this past season I started to be the assistant high school golf coach at Blessed Trinity, which is my alma mater, and that's been super cool. It's definitely difficult to not have the club in hand, because golf's one of those sports, where you tee off and you can't get pulled if you're throwing a bad game. You kind of got it; it's completely in your hands, and
right.
You got team members. There's nothing they can do to save you out there. But when you're a coach, there's nothing you can do at all except hope your team's prepared when they get on the course. So it's been a difficult challenge for sure. I get the itch to be out there and play, but I love it.
How do you coach those young men? I guess it's young men. Do you coach the women's team as well, or
just the men?
Okay. So how do you coach those young men because that really golf is a mental game. Well, all games are, I guess, in a way, but certainly golf is, right?
Yeah. I think that I'm sitting in this seat because I didn't do some things that could have possibly gotten me on the PGA Tour, where I've seen some buddies of mine who have been on the PGA Tour and what they did on a day-to-day basis. So trying to pass on the knowledge that I've come through, my own successes and my own failures onto, these younger guys. And some of them do have an opportunity to, play in college potentially and beyond. So just doing what I can to be a value add to their golf game, I guess.
Do they listen to you? Or are you just are you now an old guy to them? Like some old guy they don't care about?
It depends. I mean, I guess I am like a decade older than the younger guys, so they might think I'm an old guy and washed up. But most of the time, honestly, I've had good luck with our players. I think that since I've been down that road, they respect me a little bit for it. And, they know I'm not just saying it to be, some tough high school sports coach. I'm, telling them it because I've been there and done that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is a big time commitment for you, right? I mean, during the season, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we have practice 2 or 3 times a week mixed with a match or tournament, sometimes on the weekend. So it's a big time commitment, but honestly, I'd be on a golf course either way.
Okay. Well, I get that. You're just following your love, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. I guess I understand the golf angle, but how did all this happen? I mean, why did you pursue this way of giving back the way you have?
I've always wanted to get into coaching. So my uncle has been a lacrosse coach up in Connecticut for, years. I don't know exactly how long, but his teams have won state championships and stuff like that. And he never had a kid on the team. And, I know how much he's loved doing it, and he's been a big role model of mine. So I figured I'd give it a shot. And, I know they needed help. After I left, there were some coaching changes. And so I reached out to the athletic director and told him I'd be interested in coming back to help. And I'm local, so it was perfect for me. That's
cool. That's very nice. Great work. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving back in that way. As we wrap up here, let's give folks some parting thoughts on what folks need to know about Joe Mraz that I haven't asked.
I guess that, I'm not your typical ivory tower financial advisor. I'm a local guy, and I like to be communicative with my clients. And, no matter if you have $10 or $10 billion, I pride myself on treating people the same way. And that's something that I take very seriously, and I love what I do.
That's awesome. Now, Joe, we got to give folks some disclosure. We hadn't even gotten anywhere close to talking about bad things like investments, which we don't really want to talk about. And seriously, folks, you need to see your own financial advisor and get your own financial advice, but we hadn't even gone there. Right. So yeah, we're just profiling you, but read the disclosure you need to read.
Raymond James and Associates Incorporated, member of the New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. All opinions are those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice.
I want to get my golf tips from you anyway. I don't want to listen to Raymond James, but if you need some investment help and you need some great golf tips along the way, talk to Joe, right? And so let's get some guidance here on where they can find you, folks. Joe?
Yeah, I can be reached at raymondjames.com/Joe Mraz, or best way is by phone at 678-566-2517.
Joe Mraz, folks, financial advisor with Raymond James and assistant golf coach at Blessed Trinity. Thank you so much for the work you do, Joe. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Absolutely. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder. So you're looking for a great place to do a team building activity, but suddenly you think of broken ankles and mosquito bites, and you really don't want to do that. Well, here's the suggestion for you. A&S Culinary Concepts. Yes, they're a culinary studio. They're award-winning. They do corporate catering, but they've got a corporate team building activity that is a lot of fun, and it does not involve broken ankles and mosquito bites. You get to cook your food under the guidance of executive chef Andrew Traub and his team, and have a lot of fun doing that. Then you sit down and eat what you cooked and enjoy each other while you're doing that. Doesn't that sound like fun? Well, if you want to know more, go to asculinaryconcepts.com or call 678-336-9196. And Andrew Traub, he can tell you more about his beautiful facility in Johns Creek. And folks, just a quick reminder, North Fulton Business Radio is on all the major podcast apps. You can find the show by searching North Fulton Business Radio on your favorite podcast app. We would love it if you would subscribe and give us a great rating if you haven't already done that. It's not about us. It's not about Business RadioX. It's about our great guest. We want the show to be found so we can celebrate the work of business leaders like Joe and the other great folks we've had on this show for the past 500 plus episodes. I love saying that. So we've been around that long. So if you could help us help others find the show, we would appreciate that. So for my guest, Joe Mraz, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.